Okay, so Jay Embry was wondering why the Latah County Sheriff's Department and also the Whitman County Sheriff's Department were not involved in the Idaho 4 investigation. So let's take a listen.
Brings up a great point, because all we were told that was involved in this investigation was the Moscow Police Department, the FBI, and the Idaho State Police. Never once was Brett Myers of the Whitman County Sheriff, of the head of the drug task force, was never brought up. But not only that, the entire Whitman County Sheriff's Department was never brought up to be involved. And even more weird is the Latah County Sheriff's Department was not said to be involved.
Okay, a couple things about this. First of all, Whitman County Sheriff's Department would not be involved because the murder took place in Idaho. They don't have jurisdiction in Idaho. They don't respond to murder cases out of their county. Now, you do have some jurisdictional pacts or counties that are close together will help each other out, but that's in the cases of like a mass disaster event. So you've got, let's say, a tornado, natural disaster, earthquake, a mass shooting with several casualties. Then you're going to have several agencies responding. But just homicides, daily crime, etc., Whitman County is not going to go over into Latah County or into Moscow City to help with something. Now, as far as Latah County Sheriff's Department not getting involved, so yes, sheriff's departments are over the whole county, which means they can go into the city too. But sheriff's departments tend to kind of keep to themselves out in the county. So when a 911 call comes in from the city, they normally don't respond. They respond to the 911 calls that come in from the county, so outside city limits. They generally will not respond to something in the city unless local police has already asked them to help cover an area, because maybe there's been a shortage for some reason of some police out on leave, so they need the extra help in that part of the county into the city, or it's something they feel that they need backup on. Now, when Moscow police got there to the house and saw that it was 4 homicides, they knew immediately they were going to need help from Idaho State Police, not the sheriff's department, because of the forensics lab. So 4 homicides, you're not going to call in the sheriff's department. You're going to call in the specialized experts that deal with these homicide investigations and forensics. So there would be no reason to call the Latah County Sheriff's Department in at all for the homicides.
So the sheriff of Whitman County is the head of the Quad Cities Drug Task Force that encompasses Moscow. Remember, the Drug Task Force, that covers all of Pullman, Moscow, and 2 other counties, and anything involved with DRUG transactions, informants, it all would go through the Quad Cities Drug Task Force and Sheriff Brett Myers. So how were they not consulted? How was he not part of the investigation if the investigation even remotely looked at a drug angle?
Because drugs were not a part of the quadruple homicide. They ruled it out very early on. And had anything in that house been a target of the Quad Cities Task Force, then yeah, you would have seen them have involvement. But they didn't have involvement. Just like, you know what else the Quad Cities Task Force didn't have involvement in? That Aryan Nations bust over in Tacoma. You keep trying to make a link there, but there's no link between what was going on in Moscow and up in Kootenai with Kara and Corey, and then back down again in Moscow with Tyson and Tanya. Look up what agencies were involved in that drug bust. you will not find the Quad Cities Task Force.
They actually run the jail. I mean, it's the Latah County Sheriff's Office jail. They're responsible for the jail. How are they not involved in the investigation? Why has nobody asked this?
Since when has the agency running the jail ever been a reason for that agency to get involved in an investigation? I mean, are you serious, Jay? Seriously. So, yeah, I'm not even gonna. Just the logic that because the sheriff's department runs the jail, therefore they should be involved in the investigation. No, it was in the city limits. 911 call went out to the local police. Local police got there, determined right away that they needed something higher up than the sheriff's department. So they contacted ISP. And then Chief Fry contacted the FBI. There's absolutely no reason for the sheriff's department to be involved, no reason for the Quad City Drugs Task Force to be involved, and no reason to be involved because they run the jail. But that does bring up something else as far as sheriff department roles. We're going to transition to the document about the motion to change venue, because in it, Ann Taylor brings up what she thinks is a conflict of interest if former Police Chief Fry were to be elected Latah County Sheriff. So Ann Taylor stated this in the memorandum in support of the motion to change venue. Another consideration for this court pursuant to Idaho Code 19-1801 is that Chief Fry is running for Latah County Sheriff. Chief Fry is a witness in this case. He is engaged in extensive media statements. If he is elected, his position statutorily gives him the power to summons jurors if directed to do so, and to be in charge of an impaneled jury. See Idaho Code 2210. If he is elected, a conflict is created in his statutory duty to be in charge of an impaneled jury when he is a witness in the case. This is one of those interest of justice factors that supports a venue change out of Latah County. Well, this is Idaho Code 2210. And you'll notice, if you go down here to where I've highlighted, it says that if there is an unanticipated shortage of available trial jurors drawn from a prospective jury panel, the court may require the sheriff to summon a sufficient number of trial jurors selected at random by the clerk from the county jury list in a manner prescribed by the court. The jurors whose names are drawn from the county jury list shall be served with a summons and shall complete the qualification questionnaire form in the manner prescribed in this section. Okay, so the key part of that is random. In that memorandum, she's almost making it sound like Fry would be the one selecting the jurors. He's not. If they have to get additional jurors, it's done by random. It's a drawing. He has nothing to do with who's picked. And he would not actually be the one sending the summons either. It would actually be sheriff deputies in his department that would be issuing those summons and following up on them. He would just, basically, he's the figurehead overseeing the process. But it's not a conflict of interest for him to be testifying at the trial and then also be the sheriff that would have to issue summons. This happens in every county. Lots of times, a sheriff has been involved in the arrest of a suspect and has to appear at the trial as a witness. And it's not considered a conflict of interest because the sheriff is over the empanelment of the jury, because they literally have nothing to do with who's selected as jurors. That it's a random process. And then who's put on the jury is all based on the questionnaires and then the voir dire process by both the prosecution and the defense attorney. So the sheriff is really basically just kind of a clerical figurehead in this whole thing. So I just thought that was interesting because this happens over and over. Like our sheriff in our county, if he's involved in arrest, of course he's testifying at that trial, and they're not moving it out of town because of that. So I think she's doing her job. Like I've said before, she's throwing things against the wall to see what will stick. But that argument was just kind of funny to me because this is just normal process and not a conflict. And let's listen to some more words of wisdom from Jay and Bree before I sign off for the night.
I mean, with all those agencies intertwined and none of them listed as being involved in this investigation, well, that would leave somebody to believe either one of two things. One, that this crime was never investigated as a possible drug crime with possible danger to relatives from informants in any way, because if it was, then you would absolutely involve the drug task force. You would involve the county sheriffs. Everybody would be involved. So if they never investigated it from that angle, then what kind of investigation could this have possibly been? That's one. Now the other is they didn't want to mention the involvement of Whitman County, Latah County, or the Drug Task Force because they wanted to keep that under wraps. And I'm going to vote option number 2 on this one.
Yeah, of course you're going to pick option 2. That doesn't surprise me. So you really think with the amount of media that was everywhere, swarming around the house for weeks, that nobody from the Latah County Sheriff's Department or Whitman County Sheriff's Department would have been picked up going to King Road if they had been involved? I mean, you can keep things under wraps, but not that well. Somebody would have seen people from those 2 agencies coming and going if they were involved. And also, the court filings would have listed them. Those parts don't get redacted of which agencies are doing the warrants or involved in the different disclosures and motions to compel, etc. So obviously neither county sheriff's department was involved. Now, as far as the first part, where you're saying you don't believe they did a thorough investigation, this is for you.
Here's your sign.
Yep, Jay. The fact that the Quad City Drug Task Force wasn't involved is your sign that drugs were not involved with the quadruple homicide. Yep, that's your sign. Have a good one.